Okay, so we're coming in with this week's energetic forecast via astrology and archetypes. So this forecast is running from today, which is the 28th, all the way to the 5th of April. Okay, so we have a few things happening as we're entering next week, as well as closing off this week. Okay, so as I am recording this video, the moon is currently in Scorpio and the sun is in Aries. Okay, now we also have Mercury going into retrograde by Monday, which is the first, okay? And Mercury going into retrograde is going to be in Aries energy, which is interesting because I feel like a lot of things are unfolding within this particular transit because there's a lot of new energy in the atmosphere, but there's also a requirement for you to step up to the plate and to do something different, or maybe even to put your plan in action, okay? So let's take a look at what we got going on here. I want to make sure that my notes, I get everything down from my notes because this is not going to be a long video. I am tired. I don't know if you guys have been feeling energetically tired today, but I am tired as I'm recording this video. I feel like drained, like I need a really good nap type of energy, okay? So where are we currently? Currently, the sun is in Aries, and we've been talking about this since last Thursday. We are now in the archetype of energy that gives us an opportunity to see bigger picture. This gives us an opportunity to identify how we want to proceed with our self identification for the next 12 cycles, the next 12 months, right? Aries energy also brings in an opportunity for new beginnings, for you to take actions on your goals, your plans, maybe even being assertive in areas that you need to assert your position, right? Aries energy is also giving you an opportunity for you to figure out, or maybe even know what you want, to know how you want to move in a particular thing, to know how you feel about a particular thing, to know how you want to take action in a particular thing. So Aries is going to give you that energy of knowing what you want. Is going to give you that energy of courage, of bravery, right? Now, the flip side to that Aries energy is you're navigating through the month of Aries, with the sun being in Aries. Aries can bring in conflict. It can bring in anger. It can bring in not just assertiveness, but it can also bring in aggression. It can bring in conflict with a flare of aggression and anger. But it can also bring in an opportunity for you to act without thinking. And being super aggressive. Now, one of the things that I didn't mention is Aries energy can also bring in spontaneity, which is not necessarily a bad thing, except when you're moving on the flip side of spontaneity, which is acting without thinking. Like you're just responding, right? You're not really taking action, but you're just responding because you're triggered. So you want to be mindful of that as we're transitioning through this Aries energy. Use the energy to tap into new beginnings. Use the energy to facing things with bravery and courage. Taking things head on is one of the archetypes of Aries energy also, right? Now, the moon is currently in Scorpio as I'm recording this video, and it's going to be in Scorpio up until tomorrow. So it's transiting out of Scorpio tomorrow evening at about 7:50 p.m., 7:52 p.m. So within that Scorpion energy, you can still feel very overly intense emotions, right? And this can be destructive. So that what you want to do between now and tomorrow evening, when the moon transits over to Sagittarius, you want to be mindful not to allow your emotions to overtake you, because that can leave you into a destructive place. With the sun being in Aries, remember I said acting without thinking. Remember I said this energy can be very aggressive energy, very intense energy coming in from Scorpio, merged with that Aries energy that can be very aggressive and very full of anger, right? So definitely watch your triggers between today and tomorrow evening. Watch how you're being triggered. Take control of your emotions. Don't allow your emotions to control you as you're navigating through to this evening into tomorrow's evening, right? So now when the moon switches over to Sagittarius, Sagittarian energy can be very direct, very blunt, right? um but it can also be, what is the meaning, what's the purpose of things, how do I perceive what I'm seeing. Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, so things are expanded from a Sagittarius perspective. They need the room to travel, not just physically but also emotionally. So within Friday's energy, Friday evening into I want to say Monday morning, right? So it's going to transit over Monday morning at about 4:05 is when that moon transit from Sagittarius is ending, right? So between Friday evening and wee hours in the morning on Monday, what you're going to be picking up is that opportunity to be more optimistic, maybe a different outlook on something that you may have felt intensely emotional 2 days prior. You can find a very optimistic overview of things. You can pretty much point out the meaning of what you may have experienced within the past 2 days. You can also feel within this energy of Sagittarius the need to be very blunt and direct. And sometimes with that energy, you're not really tactful in how you say things, okay? So you want to be mindful of that. Saying things with tactfulness is going to be important as we transit over into Sagittarius, because we're going into retrograde energy, and communication can be wonky, right? And we're retrograding in Aries, so that's that intense energy that's filled with a lot of aggression, but also a lot of um assertive energy, big picture energy, right? So clear communication is going to be required as you're moving throughout the Sagittarian energy, but it's also going to require you to I want to say be tactful in your approach of how you're saying things or how you're asking questions, or overall don't take it personal if people respond a little bit aggressively based on your questioning or your remarks, okay? So I want to say really when you're in the Sagittarius energy, I want to say less is more. Not everything that you think has to be said. Okay, so from Friday into Monday, wee hours in the morning, not everything you say, not everything you think has to be said. Sometimes those thoughts can be kept inside and not outwardly expressed, okay? So you may even feel the need within the Sagittarian moon transit, the need for you not to be blocked in. You don't want to be blocked in or boxed in physically or emotionally. You are going to feel the need to express yourself. But I'm just telling you, not everything you feel and think needs to be expressed outwardly. That's the energy you want to take on while transiting through Sagittarius from the 29th into wee hours of the first. Okay, now the first, if you're an empath, you've been kind of already feeling this Mercury in retrograde energy. And retrograde gives you an opportunity to stop, pause, and reflect, okay? And it's happening in Aries, which means that you can stop, pause, and reflect about how you want to be identified in this new wheel cycle, all right? So think about your plans. Think about what needs new beginnings, how the old things that needs to go out. Think about knowing what you want and how to move, right? Think about where you need to be assertive, or maybe where you may need to deal with some anger, or what conflicts you may need to iron out. Now, I want to say with retrograde energy, especially when it comes to Mercury, you can find that a lot of people are going through the same clearing out the closet per se, right? So you can have a lot of miscommunication because everyone is really trying to understand where they're coming from, and it may not necessarily be aware of where you're coming from. So you also don't want to take things too personal in this energy, and you definitely want to manage your own shit in this energy, right? Because the energy can become explosive. So be mindful of that. As we transit over to Capricorn's energy, wee hours on the first until the third, early about 9 a.m. on the third, you want to be mindful that routine and structure and efficiency and how you utilize your energy is going to become important within these 2 days, right? I also want to say within this transit through the moon, as the moon is going to be entering Capricorn between the first and the third, try not to be so rigid in your thinking, and try not to be so rigid in your planning. You want to leave room for miscommunication. You want to leave leave room for things to change in the midst of things, because we are in retrograde energy. So someone could have thought they communicated something this way, but you took it that way. All right. So don't be so rigid and make your plan. Leave room for your plans to change between Monday and Wednesday of next week. Okay. That's going to be important. Now, as we're closing out the week next week, right, and we hop on over into Aquarius, what you're going to find is uh, things are not so much emotional, which means you can find a lot of intellectual conversations, but they may also be skewed because of the retrograde, right? So I want to say, that Aquarian transit may work really well in the moon for some people coming in to next Wednesday and next Friday, because it's going to allow you to detach from emotions. It's going to allow you to be idealistic in your nature and maybe being open to what other people have to say, right? Especially with the retrograde energy. It may even allow you to have a sense of, I want to say, space and freedom, right? To not just express your ideas, but once again, to be able to receive others' ideas, okay? The one thing that you need to be mindful of within next Wednesday and next Friday is that you don't want to come across more intellectual superior than other people, right? Because we do have that aggressive energy in the atmosphere with Mars. And we also have that with Aries, which is ruled by Mars. But you also have that assertive energy, so you can find conflict there. You don't want to come across that you know more than others. Like you have a, like, oh, like I have a PhD and you don't. Well, I read this and you didn't. Well, I have the facts and you don't, right? You don't want to come across feeling like you have a superiority complex over people as you're transiting through this energy because of the retrograde energy. People may take what you mean differently because of this retrograde energy. Communication can become very wonky, okay? Energetically, what you need to be mindful of next week is to stop and think, stop and feel, right? Stop and really process things before responding. There is going to be a sense of determination about getting things done and maybe even getting your idea out. But once again, with Mercury in retrograde, especially in Aries, I want to say, look within yourself to see if this is a your problem or a their problem, okay? So you want to go ahead and do that vetting. Am I vetting myself? Is this a victim mentality? Is this a victim issue? You want to think about it. Is this a past experience that I'm dealing with? Is this a future experience that I got myself stuck into? Am I able to transcend, or is this toxic behavior? Like, really begin to ask yourself these questions. You may also see within the next 25 days or so, you may also see relationships circling back from the past, and maybe not only relationships, but you may also see some type of unresolved issue or unresolved concern pop up within the next 20 to 25 days within this retrograde energy, okay? So you want to be able to deal with that. As things pop up, you want to stop, digest it, feel, think, all right, before you take action and then go into the experience of whatever that is. Be mindful about that, okay? So don't jump to conclusions is really what this week is going to be about, all right? Don't jump to conclusions. You want to make sure that you're stopping and processing everything, and stopping and really understanding that everybody's their own little world because of how these planets are aligned. So you don't want to take anything too personally. And I know I always say this, like, don't take things too personally, but you really don't want to take things too personally as we're moving into retrograde, all right? So now, like I said, stop and think, be determined to be able to work through and navigate through things. So don't give up in this energy. You don't want to give up in this energy. You want to go ahead and push your way through this, right? Be able to take action in things as they come along, but remember, you don't want to get so rigid where you've planned this and this is what you're expecting, and then the plans change. Be open for the change. You want to flow with the energy this week, okay? So if you've had an appointment, or you have a dinner date, or you have a lunch date with someone and things don't work out, don't be rigid. Allow the energy to flow, okay? Move on to the next thing, all right? Being able to see things from a new perspective is going to really be good for you between Friday's energy through Monday's energy. Be mindful of that. You can gain a new perspective on things. It's not so much sometimes what people say, but it's also what people don't say. So pay attention to people's actions, what they say, but also most importantly, what they're not saying within this energy, all right? Now, as we're wrapping up the week coming into next week, you may find that, like I said, you're more open to what the group has to say. But even if you're open to what the group has to say or what other people has to say, at the end of the day, you want to be able to balance it within yourself. This is something else that I want you to be mindful of, especially in this retrograde energy, with this retrograde energy in Aries and these transit, all right? There are a lot of karmic circle backs happening, right? And karma is really just bad behavior, or good behavior, right? So there's a lot of toxic karmic circle backs happening, and especially with people that that have exited out of your experience, that now find themselves showing back up in this experience. You do not want to have a karmic drive-by. Okay, so please do not try to save anybody or help anybody in this particular energy this week if they're not in particularly trying to help themselves. Okay, so tap into your intuition. If somebody has been dealing with something and this is something repetitive and you've had this conversation with them umpteen amount of times and they're still complaining about the same particular scenario or situation, and they're having a difficult time, you don't want to intervene with the karmic circle back. Okay, so that may be something that they have to deal with karmically, to balance out their next experience that they can have, all right? So be aware of the temptation maybe to save others, okay? Especially my empaths and my healers, right? Some people you just can't save. Some people, they have to go through this karmic circle back for them to get to the other side. So you have to karmically deal with the energy that you've put out, right? Before you can get to the opposite side of that. So be mindful of that, right? There's going to be some deception happening within this energy, so you want to be mindful of that, all right? So between Friday the 29th, you want to be very mindful of information that's coming in between Friday the 29th and information coming in on the 1st to the 3rd. So from Friday 29th to the particularly between the 29th and the 1st to the 3rd, be mindful of information coming in and pay attention to your intuition, because there could be some deception in the message or some deception in the I want to say the help that's required of you. Okay, so be mindful of that. Keep it in mind that some people are dealing with the karmic circle back. All right, so now, as you're moving throughout the week, like I said, it's important for you, my love, not to take things personally. It's important for you to see what's your energy versus what's not your energy. It's important for you to be able to see bigger picture, pay attention to what people are not just saying and doing, but what they're not saying or what they're not doing, okay? So this can also help to navigate you through this energy. You also want to be determined to get to the other side of things, which means that stop, think, and feel before you take action for that next experience. Remember, this is the energy where we have to be independent thinkers and independent feelers, all right? So gather all of the information before you make a decision, right? Be an independent thinker and an independent feeler in this energy, because that's going to navigate you through a lot of this chaos that we have going on. Also, keep in mind that out of order comes chaos. So don't get, I want to say, anxious about chaotic energy. You just need to ground yourself in chaotic energy so you can create order. Okay, so to recap, Sun is in Aries. That energy can bring in spontaneity. It can bring in knowing what you want. It can bring in bravery and courage. It can bring in bigger picture, new beginnings. The flip side to that energy, it can also bring in conflict, the need for debate or that fuck fight energy, anger, aggression, acting without thinking. So you want to be mindful of that, because a lot of people are operating by that and they're not aware of that. So just be mindful what side of the coin you're going to be operating on with this Aries energy. Moving through the week, as we're ending up this week, Friday with Scorpio, the energy can still feel intense, very emotionally intense. You want to not allow your emotions to control you before you are destructive in your actions, okay? Moving over to the weekend, between Friday and Monday, you need to know, leave room to move, not just physically but also emotionally. Leave room for those emotions and for yourself to move physically, right? Keeping in mind, between Friday and Monday, it's okay for you to be direct, but you may want to watch your tactfulness and how you say something, and remember that everything that you think and feel does not have to be said while dealing with that Sagittarian energy on Friday through Monday, okay? So Monday through Wednesday, as we're in Capricorn, you also want to know that it is okay for plans to change. Don't be so structured. It's okay to allow the energy to flow, so you're not stuck and feeling that someone personally attacked you, or feeling that, I know I should have did this myself energy, right? Things are going to change. Mercury's in retrograde. Plans are going to change. So between Monday and Wednesday, leave room open, right, for that flexibility of things to change. When we're closing off the end of the week between Wednesday and next Friday, you want to be mindful that it's okay for you to exchange ideas, but you do want to leave the room open for miscommunication, and maybe you want to ask the question more than once just to make sure that is what you heard. So for example, if you have to meet someone at 5 o'clock, you want to double check that 5 o'clock is what they said, and then you also want to triple check to make sure that it's 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time or Central Time. Just double check is the energy between Wednesday and Friday, okay? You also want to make sure that although that energy between Wednesday and Friday can be emotionally detached, you still want to pay attention to navigate your way through that because of the sun's position, okay? And don't have a superiority complex because you know more than others, as we're closing off the week, okay? So communicate your needs, communicate your ideas, but also leave room open for other people to communicate their ideas, and not allowing them the space to feel like they don't know what they're talking about. Even though you may know they don't know what they're talking about, you don't necessarily have to let them know that they don't know what they're talking about, okay? So that's the recap. Now, we've started our journey in mental and emotional wellness, and a lot of that is happening on Instagram, okay? So on Instagram, I'm giving out the instructions. We're now in week 2, all right? Week 1 was all about you tapping into who you are now, where you are now, what you want and need now. Those were the 3 major questions that we were asking ourselves for the whole week, and we're going to be putting out the new set of instructions for the second week on Instagram. So if you don't follow me on Instagram, make sure you hop on over to Instagram for your inner voice, okay? On Instagram also. And I jump on Instagram every 2.5 days to talk about these moon transits and some of the things that you could be experiencing energetically in your relationships, or maybe out in the social public arena, okay? Now, remember, be determined, but be able to stop and think and feel independently before you take actions in anything, all right? So be kind to yourself, love yourself, but also be kind to somebody else. Not so much because they deserve it, but more so because you can, all right? And I'm going to see you guys in next week's Astrology and Archetype report. Bye, my loves.